Livy Dunn becomes pregnant and is sent by her father to Colorado to marry a man she has never met. Her journey begins on a train, where she reflects on the choices that brought her here. She remembers her father, Reverend Dunn, disappointed and insisting that she do what is right, and her sister Abby, who tried to comfort her. When Livy arrives in Colorado, Reverend Case greets her kindly, saying she looks like her late mother. He mentions the long drive ahead, and Livy stops at the station to collect herself before they continue. On the way to their destination, Reverend Case tells Livy about the hard lives of the local farmers. When they arrive, his wife, Marion, introduces Livy to Ray Singleton, a quiet farmer. After the Reverend and Marion leave for the church, Livy and Ray are left alone. Ray, nervous but polite, pours her a glass of lemonade. The moment feels tense, but Livy kindly starts a conversation, helping ease the silence. Ray soon feels comfortable with her and decides he wants to marry her, without hesitation. Livy asks if he will accept her child, and Ray calmly says yes, wondering why anyone would abandon a woman like her. They marry at the church with Reverend Case leading the ceremony. Ray's sister, Martha, and her husband, Hank, serve as witnesses. Martha welcomes Livy warmly, giving her a candle and a casserole for their new home, and invites them to visit soon. On their way home, Livy asks Ray about his neighbors, but he only mentions his sister, which puzzles her. When they arrive, she realizes why. His house stands alone, far from anyone else. Ray's dog, Franklin, greets her excitedly as Ray welcomes her inside. He shows her the kitchen, offers her something to drink, and carries her suitcases upstairs. He gives her the brightest room, once belonging to his parents. In another room, Livy notices bunk beds and learns that Ray's brother Daniel died at Pearl Harbor. That evening, they share a simple meal of bread. When Livy admits she doesn't know how to cook, Ray kindly says he can manage a little and that his sister Martha could help. He adds that Livy might also learn from a library book, though the nearest library is an hour away. Ray still seems shy around Livy and asks about her studies. She tells him she finished college and studied archaeology, even writing a thesis about a German archaeologist. Ray clears the dishes and offers her some chocolate cake made by Mrs. Pratt from church. Livy appreciates his kindness, but wonders why he agreed to marry her. Ray explains that when Reverend Case told him about her, he felt it was meant to be. Livy still has questions, but his calm answer gives her some peace. Before going to bed, Ray says he must rise early and wishes her good night. Later, Livy finds a small box on her table with earrings inside. She tries them on and smiles for a moment, but when she opens her locket and sees a picture of Edward, the man she once loved, tears fill her eyes. The next morning, Livy wakes up late and begins to explore the house. Franklin, the dog, happily greets her when she steps outside. She tells Ray she plans to visit his family and the library in Lejana. Ray offers to drive her and gives her his library card. On the way, they talk about his farm. Ray explains why some fields are empty, and when Livy offers to help, he gently tells her to focus on the house instead. He drops her off near a telephone booth and heads to the library himself. There, he finds cookbooks for her and even asks for books about the German archaeologist Henry Schliemann. Livy calls her sister Abby and tells her how lost and troubled she feels. When she asks about Edward, Abby says there has been no word from him. Ray teaches Livy how to drive his old truck, and she feels thrilled to learn. He also shows her how to tell when the gas tank is low, since the gauge doesn't always work. As they drive, they pass workers from a nearby camp helping on the farms because there aren't enough local hands. Later, they visit the church. Martha's daughter, Ruth, keeps glancing at Livy and later compliments her dress. After the service, Ray introduces Livy to Miss Parker and Mrs. Pratt, who are surprised and happy to learn he's married. Curious, they ask how the two met. Before Livy can answer, Ray quickly says they met in Denver. and the women seem satisfied. Outside, Livy stops to mail a letter she says is for her sister, though it's really meant for Edward. Afterward, Ray takes her to a quiet lake. As they drift in a small boat, Livy admits she once loved to swim. She leans back, breathing in the fresh air, and thanks Ray for covering for her earlier. Ray smiles and talks about fishing, saying it's not just about the catch, but about enjoying the view. Later, at the farm, Livy hears laughter coming from the fields. When she approaches, the girls grow quiet, unsure of her. Livy simply smiles and asks what they were studying. The girls explain that they keep a notebook to record the kinds of butterflies they see. When Livy mentions that she lives in the farmhouse, they realize she is their employer and quickly return to work. Livy tells them she's simply curious about their hobby and asks to look at their notes. She admires their collection, and while they're talking, they spot another butterfly. Just then, Franklin runs over, startling the girls, who hurry back to their chores, despite Livy's invitation to visit the house sometime. Later, Livy visits the doctor and tells him she is 4 months along. He predicts the baby will arrive in the 3rd week of December. After the appointment, Livy seems eager to send another letter, while Ray worries about her health. She assures him both she and the baby are fine. On the drive home, Livy grows uneasy, afraid that people will notice how soon the baby is due and start gossiping. Ray gently reminds her that the townspeople mean well and wish them happiness. Back at home, Livy uses her new cookbook to make an omelette for Ray. The smell fills the kitchen, and he seems pleased, until he takes a bite and realizes it's far spicier than expected. Livy feels bad for adding too many peppers to the omelette and quickly brings some cheese to soften the taste. Just then, Hank arrives, and Livy looks puzzled. Ray explains that he's digging a hole to make a small swimming pool because she once said she liked swimming. He hopes she and the children can enjoy it during summer. Soon, Martha arrives with their kids. Her sons, Hank Jr. and Chester, run off to play, while Ruth happily greets Livy. Ruth has even asked her mother to fix her hair like Livy's. Together, they go outside to watch the men work, and Ruth asks Livy what name she's thinking of for the baby. When Ruth says she dislikes her own name, Livy smiles and tells her it's a beautiful name from the Bible. As they watch, Livy asks Martha if she's always lived nearby. Martha says their grandfather built the house, and the family has stayed ever since. She fondly recalls her adventurous brother Danny. Meanwhile, Hank excitedly runs the digger, shouting directions at Ray. Livy worries he's overworking, but Martha reassures her he only wants to make her happy. On the way to Martha's birthday, Livy asks Ray if he's ever wondered about life beyond the farm. He enjoys traveling, but always feels tied to his land. Livy mentions that many people are attached to their land, though she prefers the native idea of caring for it temporarily. Ray smiles, saying his land feels like a lasting part of him. At the party, Martha and Hank are dancing happily. Livy sees Ray tapping along but holding back, so she asks him to dance. Awkward at first, they soon catch the rhythm and enjoy the moment. Watching Martha's family, Livy feels a quiet warmth. The next morning, Ray returns to the farm while Livy stays in the kitchen. When Rose and Florrie arrive, she greets them with soda and joins them outside, listening kindly as they share hopes and regrets about life before the war. Livy tells the girls about her studies and dreams of visiting Turkey. She explains she stopped school to care for her sick mother and move here. Florrie asks about her baby, and Rose scolds her, but they offer to bring maternity clothes, which Livy warmly accepts. Later, she shares the visit with Ray, who is uneasy and prefers distance, not blaming the girls but feeling overwhelmed running the farm. That evening, over dinner, Livy is impressed by Ray's knowledge and thoughtfulness. Later, he steps closer, and Livy quietly retreats to her room. The next morning, Livy eagerly greets her sister Abby, who finds the house smaller and lonelier than expected. Abby urges Livy to return to Denver while her husband is overseas, but Livy hesitates, recalling her past sacrifices. That night, Abby suggests Livy could leave Ray, but Livy defends him as kind and loving. The next day, Livy drives Abby to the station, gives her a letter for Edward, and returns home. She hears Ray humming an old lullaby, mentions Abby's suggestion about giving birth in Denver, and quietly goes to prepare lunch. Livy takes Rose and Florrie to the mountains to watch butterflies and discuss their notebook. Florrie tears up a sketch of a man when Rose notices it. Later, they shop for maternity fabrics, and Livy defends the girls when staff scold them. On the way home, she sees German soldiers and feels a strange memory. After her truck runs out of gas, she explores the dugout Martha mentioned, and excitedly tells Ray about the arrowheads she found. Later, Livy visits Rose and Florrie to try on her dress. They talk about their father's struggles since moving from California, but how he still wants to show the family's loyalty. Florrie vents about losing their house while Rose interrupts. On the drive home, Florrie excitedly mentions Walter, who gave her a bracelet, and Livy encourages her. At home, Livy sees Ray burning items in the shed and worries about her artifacts. Ray apologizes, puts out the fire, and saves the bag. He explains that on a busy farm, some things must go, but promises to make her happy. Before leaving for winter work, Ray leaves a note suggesting Livy explore the cellar for interesting finds. Livy eagerly explores the cellar, finding many interesting items to place around the house. Ray hangs an old yoke and shows her more family history. They visit Daniel's grave, and Ray recalls Daniel's promise to let him care for the farm while he joined the Navy. Ray installs a telephone, delighting Livy. Later, the cold drives her inside while she waits for Ray, preparing a special meal. When he arrives, he scolds her for bringing Franklin indoors, but also gives her a letter from Edward before leaving for his night shift. The next morning, Livy waits with breakfast, apologizes for Franklin, and confesses she once looked in his dresser. Ray explains the watch she found belonged to his father and brings him luck. Livy feels sorry, but Ray isn't sure if she regrets marrying him or being with Edward. She asks if leaving would help, and he kisses her, but her lack of response makes him doubt her feelings. Later, Livy visits Martha, giving Ruth an old dress. She explains she has been writing to Edward, who recently denied being the baby's father. Worried she hurt Ray, Livy considers leaving for Denver after Thanksgiving. Martha reminds her that Ray loves those close to him, and she should decide soon. That night, Livy cries over her mother's death, admitting she felt so lonely she relied on a stranger, and thanks Ray for his kindness. On Thanksgiving, she goes with Ray to deliver a dish to Rose and Florrie. Florrie secretly arranges a meeting with her boyfriend and asks Livy to pick her up. On Thanksgiving at Martha's, everyone shares what they're thankful for. Livy becomes emotional, saying she's felt more love from their family recently than ever before, and promises to remember their kindness. Back home, Livy prepares to meet Rose and Florrie and notices Franklin inside with Ray. Since it's very cold, Ray allows him to stay indoors. He then confesses that he's fallen in love with her and can't let her go without sharing his feelings. He offers to support her dreams while staying close, and gives her a ring he didn't have on their rushed wedding day. Livy worries about their future, but Ray reassures her that she will forgive herself and that he believes in them. Livy drives with Rose and Florrie, wearing Ray's ring. Florrie asks her to take Walter, her boyfriend, to his cousins, and Livy hesitantly agrees. Walter rides in the back, cold, while Florrie and Rose sit up front. Upset, Livy questions Florrie about Walter's promises. Florrie hides the truth, but Livy knows she made his uniform, and warns her that leaving could bring trouble after the war. Florrie resists involving her family, so Livy urges her to go home, destroy the uniform and bracelet, and avoid a decision she might regret. Livy drops Rose and Florrie off, and tells them to warn Walter it's safer alone. She takes him home, makes him change out of the uniform, and prepares the truck with Franklin. As he tries to escape, her water breaks. She calls the sheriff, burns the uniform and her locket, and lets go of the past. Ray and Hank arrive. Ray lifts Livy, excited for the baby, while Hank informs Martha. Walter is caught by the sheriff, where Livy predicted. At home, they celebrate. The baby, Daniel, receives gifts including a butterfly book from Rose and Florrie. Ray plays with him and begins small adventures. Livy, Ray, Daniel, and Franklin are now a happy family, ready for what comes next.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected with us.